I wonder if you ever feel stuck. Anybody ever feel like you're just kind of stuck in life in general maybe, or maybe you feel stuck in some particular part of your life? You just kind of been in a holding pattern for a while, and while you're not particularly satisfied with where you are, you just haven't found the wherewithal to move forward into something better, right? I think that as I just kind of interact with people in general, I feel like a lot of people are stuck in some way in their life. Some of you maybe are stuck in a relationship of some sort. Like you're in a relationship that just doesn't seem to be going anywhere particular, and it just doesn't feel to you like it's really the best thing. It's like you don't feel like maybe this is really the one for you, but you're in that relationship because it's better than the alternative of being alone. And so you're just kind of holding steady. Some of you are stuck in a job that you hate, right? And you're just in there and it's just sucking the life out of you every day. You go to work, but you get up the next day and you go back to work. And you probably think to yourself that you have no choice because after all, you've got bills to pay, right? But you know what? So do people who have jobs that they love. They've got bills to pay as well, right? And so a lot of people, I think, are stuck in this or that. And it's also true that we get stuck spiritually. We get stuck sometimes just where we are in our faith. Maybe it's that you're stuck out of indecision, like you just haven't decided to commit yourself to Jesus. Or maybe you're stuck in that you have committed your life to Jesus, but you just you're kind of in this place where you're not really growing your faith, you're not really stretching your faith or putting it to the test. You're just kind of playing it safe. You're kind of going through the motions and never really stepping up to make yourself available to God and say, God, I'm at your disposal. I want you to use me. I want you to do something with my life that would actually bring glory to you. I want to know what part that I have to play in this incredible thing called the kingdom of God, this grand adventure of life that you've invited me into. And so I want to be a part of that, but maybe you just haven't ever really stepped out and said that to God. And so you're stuck and you're stagnant in your faith and in your relationship with him. So it's time to get unstuck. Okay? So today I want to try to help you get unstuck if you are stuck in some area in your life. Because if you're stuck, that means that you have yet to take hold of the life that Jesus wants for you. It's still unclaimed. And the only way that you're ever going to attain it is to move forward. You got to move forward. All right, now the scriptures give us many inspiring examples about how to do that. And so as we continue this series that we've been in for a couple of weeks now on the book of Joshua, as we come today to chapter 3, we find the Israelites camped out on the east side of the Jordan River. And the promised land of Canaan lay on the other side of the river. Now, this is the land that God had sworn to their ancestor Abraham. Remember that he was going to give them to be their inheritance, where they could build a life, where they could build a nation that would not only bless them, but would bless all of the nations of the world as it became the place where the future Messiah, the future Savior of the world, would be born and would live out his mission to bring salvation to all people. And so this land had been promised by God, but it had yet to be taken by the Israelites. And God had commissioned Joshua to lead the people forward to take possession of the land. And so if you missed the beginning of this series, I would just encourage you to go back and listen to the earlier messages that really give more background and explanation about this. You can get those from our website, okay? But the time had come, and so as God is telling Joshua, the time is here. The time has come. It's time to take possession of the land, but first, they had to cross the Jordan River. And so Joshua chapter 3, verse 1 says, early in the morning, Joshua and all of the Israelites set out from Shittim and went to the Jordan where they camped before crossing over. Now, understand that crossing over the Jordan, this would be a huge milestone for the nation of Israel in their history. I mean, this was bigger for them than Washington crossing the Delaware. This was a big deal. The Jordan River was the most recognizable boundary of the land of Canaan. And this event of them crossing over the Jordan is actually immortalized in so many Christian hymns and spirituals that have been written through the years as a metaphor of death. Some of you right now, they're especially ancient, you're probably hearing Johnny Cash singing, "I won't have to cross Jordan alone," right? You can just hear it in your head. And so there's so many songs out there about crossing the Jordan being this picture of dying and going to heaven. And that metaphor really stems from the way that the writer of the book of Hebrews uses this analogy of the rest that the people of Israel found in the promised land being like the eternal rest that we find through Jesus Christ eventually when we reach heaven. And so there are certainly some parallels there. However, crossing the Jordan River can be also compared to a major transition in life where you're going from the old to the new, from the past to the future. And understand that for Israel, crossing the Jordan River did not mean that their battles were over. In fact, it meant that they were just beginning. And if they wanted the blessed life in the promised land, then they were going to have to fight for it. With God's help, of course. But first, they had to move forward and cross that river. Now, if you and I are going to get unstuck in our lives, if we're going to lay claim to the life that Jesus wants for us, the life he's calling us into, we have to move forward. We have a Jordan of our own to cross, and we need to cross it. And if we're going to have the courage to do that, if we're going to have the courage to move forward and cross our Jordan, then we have to believe that the future can be better than the past. We have to believe this. And this is not always easy for us to believe, is it? You know, as the Israelites camped there beside the Jordan River, they were at a really key juncture in their history between their past and their future. And they had spent 4 decades before this wandering the wilderness as nomads, as a people without a country. But that wasn't where God wanted them. It wasn't what God had desired for them. It was something that they had chosen for themselves when they refused to cross the Jordan River the first time he had brought them to it. They refused to cross it. They refused to go in and take the land. And that's why they had spent the last 4 decades wandering around in the middle of nowhere. And so for them to now make a different choice at this moment with Joshua's leadership, for them to make a different choice and to actually cross the river and to enter into the promised land, they had to believe that the future in the promised land would be better than the past in the wilderness. And to you and me, we might think, well, that's a no-brainer, right? I mean, that obviously, the promised land is going to be better than the wilderness, right? But is it so obvious? The reason that it's obvious to you and me is that we know the rest of the story. We know how this goes. We know how this ends. They didn't, right? And very often, we prefer the certainty of the present to the uncertainty of the future, don't we? I mean, why are you settling for that person that you've been dating that you keep complaining to your friends about. Because you don't believe that there is a better prospect waiting for you in your future. That's why. But you're just afraid that you have such a hard time believing that there's actually someone better that might be there. And so, hey, at least this is my man. At least this is my woman. You feel that sense of security, and you justify all the red flags that are there in the relationship by thinking to yourself, this is just as good as it's going to get for me. This is the best that I can do. And some of you have the same attitude about that job you hate, right? I can't do any better. This is just what I'm stuck with in life. See? And so you see the future that you hope for as being blocked. Like it's just blocked off. It's walled off. And you just can't get there. You can't get to the life that you hope for. And so it's just kind of better to just kind of be okay and settle where you are. And so you can't believe that God actually has something better out there in store for you. The truth is, the future is not blocked to you. You're blocking your own future. Because God can't give you a new relationship until you let go of the old relationship. He can't give you a better job until you're willing to quit the one that you hate, right? So you have to stop opting for the known just because it's something that's in your hand, even though it's unfulfilling and unsatisfying, over the unknown. You got to stop saying, look, I just got to be where I am. And because I don't know what the future holds, so I'd rather just be here. But no, you got to be willing to say, no, I really can move into a better place. I really can have a better life. I really can move forward into something better. Now, in many cases, it isn't necessarily that the past has been bad. It's not necessarily that what you have right now is bad. It's just that perhaps God intended it as a stepping stone towards something better for you, and you've turned it into a foundation stone. And so you've decided, well, it's good enough. And you've just camped out there. You've built your life there because the law of inertia, is that an object at rest wants to stay at rest. And so you're just going to stay at rest, and you aren't growing, and you aren't stretching to the full heights that you could go to. The Apostle Paul said in Philippians 3, brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it. But one thing I do, forgetting what is what? Behind. Forgetting what is behind. And straining towards what is ahead, I press on towards the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. See, the Apostle Paul, he wasn't content to just kind of rest on what he had already accomplished with his life up to that point, which, by the way, was quite a bit. But he wasn't content to just rest there and just kind of say, okay, this is as much as I'm going to do. This is as good as it's going to get. No, he doesn't want to be stagnant. He wants to keep moving forward. And he wants to keep moving forward so that he can receive everything that God wanted him to receive and accomplish everything God wanted him to accomplish until his last breath. And really, that's the way that I've lived my life. It's why I came here in the first place to North Carolina. It's why we planted CrossTrail 3 years ago. And I believe that God is just getting started, just barely getting started with what he wants to do with us as a church family. But we have to believe, guys, that the future is wide open to us and that it's going to be better than what came before. So sometimes I think we romanticize the past, right? Nostalgia, it's a real thing, isn't it? Nostalgia is the enemy of progress. It just is. Nostalgia is the enemy of progress. It's such a temptation for us to be convinced that the past was better than the future ever could be. Yeah? And the temptation becomes stronger the older you get, I'm discovering. It's so easy just to look back in the past and think, oh, man, those were the best times. Man, back when I was 18, and I was wearing parachute pants and listening to Motley Crue. Man, those were the best times. And life was so great back then. It'll never be that good again. After God broke the Israelites out of slavery, got them out of Egypt. Do you know it was just a short time later when they're out there in the wilderness that they were already looking back nostalgically and thinking, man, it was just so much better back there in Egypt when we were, living the life of a slave. It was so much better than this. It's so much better than whatever it is that this God has in mind for us. What are we doing? Let's go back. Let's go back to the past. It's amazing, isn't it? It sounds crazy to us. But we're just as prone to nostalgia as they were. The thing is that we forget about the troubles and the problems of the past. And all we remember is the good things about it. So we have very selective memories when it comes to the past. And we build this illusion in our mind that the past was actually better than it really was when it was the present. And simultaneously, in the process, we lose our anticipation of the future. And our creativity begins to kind of calcify and petrify, and we lose the ability to dream new dreams and to imagine new things, and it just kind of fades away. But listen, faith will put you in a different kind of headspace. Faith causes us to believe that God is still good. It's not just that God was good in the past. God is still good, and that what is ahead is better than what is behind. That's faith. That is a perspective of faith. Now, faith is rooted in the past. It's acted on in the present, but it always looks forward to the future. Always. So in Joshua chapter 3 then, picking up in verse 2, it says that after 3 days, the officers went throughout the camp, giving orders to the people. When you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God and the Levitical priests carrying it, you are to move out from your positions and do what? Follow it. And then you will know which way to go, since you have never been this way before. Now understand that the ark of the covenant, this was the most sacred object in the Israelite community. This was this gold-plated wooden chest that had two sculpted cherubs on its lid facing each other and was carried by two long poles on either side. But what's significant about the ark is that it represented the very presence of God. It represented God himself being among them. It was usually kept in the most sacred part of the sanctuary, in the tabernacle. But when the community moved, when they were on the move, the Ark of the Covenant always went at the front of the procession as a way of saying God is leading us. God is the one who is guiding us forward. He's the one we're leaning on for our direction and for protection. And so as they begin to move forward across the Jordan River here, God, again, is decreeing that he is going to lead the way for them. He's going to lead the way forward. And he points out, he says, since you have never been this way before. Did you notice that? See, wherever you are in this life, whatever lies ahead for you, you have never been this way before. You've never been there. It's going to be new. And so this faith mindset that the future is actually going to be better than the past is so important. But we also then have to follow God's lead. We have to follow God's lead towards that future. See, God knew the best way for the people of Israel to take through the wild terrain of the Jordan riverbank, and he was going to guide the priests who were carrying that ark along the best route through the river. And then the people were supposed to watch where the ark went, and then they were supposed to go wherever it went. Now listen, whatever that Jordan River is for you that you need to cross into the future that God has for you, into the life that he is calling you to, it's going to be a new experience for you. And yes, you can draw on the wisdom that you've gained from the past. You can certainly take your perspective with you, but there's only one who knows what lies ahead. Only one. And it's not you. It's God. And so every new day presents new opportunities, right? Every new day presents new challenges as well. But God already knows what lies ahead in tomorrow for you. Opportunities, challenges. He already knows. And he knows the way. Now, it's important that you notice in the text here that the Israelites at this point did not know the plan. They didn't know the plan. He didn't tell them the plan. He just said, you watch where the ark goes and you follow wherever the ark goes. So that's all they knew. They just knew they were supposed to follow God's presence into the river. And I think that's so important for us to understand what God is speaking to us through that. He's saying, you've got to trust me. You got to trust me. You got to trust my guidance. You got to know that I know the plan. Even if you don't know the plan, I know the plan, so follow me. I know the way, follow me. I'll show you. Even when you don't know where the path is going. See, I think sometimes we stay stuck in life because we're waiting for God to show us the whole plan, right? Have you been there? You're just kind of waiting. Okay, God, show me. You got to show me how this is going to work out. We want to know, like, what's next? What's the next step? And then what's the step after that? And then what'll be the next step after that? And all the way down to the destination that we're heading towards. And you know what? Rarely does it work that way. Very rarely. God doesn't usually work that way. And probably the reason is that it would require little to no faith if we knew the whole plan. Okay? He wants us to trust him with the plan and to follow his lead one step at a time. You know, when Michelle, some years ago, looked deep into her heart and decided that what she really wanted was to become a wedding planner. Now that she was in her 40s, it's like, I want to be a wedding planner. She really had no idea how to do that, right? And so it was exciting. It was an exciting idea, but it was also a scary idea for her. And she kept saying, I don't know, how to do this. I don't know how to go about this. I've never started a business before. I don't know how to start a business. And so she prayed about it. She prayed about it, and she talked to me about it, and she got confirmation through the Spirit of God and through me that, yeah, you should do this. This is a good idea. And then God revealed a first step for her to take. And so she took that first step. She didn't know what was going to come after that. She had no idea what step 2 was. She just knew what step 1 was, and so she took step 1. And now here she is. How many years? 8 years. 8 years later. Is it about 8 years? Wow. Time flies. So 8 years later, here she is, with a very successful business that she's been running. But it took faith for her to do that. It took faith, and she had to take the step that God revealed to her, not knowing what was going to come next. And that's what she did. She was eager to follow. She said, okay, God, you showed me a step. I'm going to take it. I'm going to follow you. And she moved forward. And she moved forward at the pace that he showed her the way. And here she is. And so God says to Joshua in Joshua 3 and verse 8, tell the priests who carry the Ark of the Covenant, when you reach the edge of the Jordan's waters, go and stand in the river. Now, normally, to go stand in the middle of the Jordan River would not be that big of a deal. The Jordan River is typically not particularly a wide river, nor a particularly deep river, nor a particularly fast-moving river. And so to ford the Jordan River is really usually not that much of a difficult thing to do. However, that is not the case during its annual flood stage in the spring, during which it expands, and the river grows to be anywhere up to about 150 feet wide and 10 to 20 feet deep with a strong current. And wouldn't you know it, that the very time that God is sending the Israelites across the river was at its flood stage. Now, either that means that God is a terrible planner, and he just forgot all about the flood stage. I mean, oh, sorry, guys. I should have brought you here 6 months ago, but okay, we'll make this work. Or this was a deliberate test of faith. I'll let you decide which one you think it was. So when Joshua told the priests to carry the ark on their shoulders and go stand in the river, they would have understood that if God didn't intervene, they probably were going to drown. Now, isn't that the way that it feels so often when God is moving you forward into a new future? It feels that way. It's like that. In fact, I would say that's a pretty good sign that God is really the one who's leading you forward when you realize that if God doesn't come through, you're going to drown. See, faith enables us to take risks that we wouldn't normally take, right? Because we trust that God is going to come through. We trust that he's in it. He's going to make a way. See, if you don't need God to accomplish your goals aren't big enough. See, the promised life in Jesus is not something that you can attain on your own. And so if you are only willing to step into things that feel safe and easy, and that you're confident you've got all the know-how, you've got all the skills, you've got all the resources you need to do that thing, you are settling on the wrong side of the Jordan. If you want the life that Jesus really wants for you, you're going to have to cross the river. And it's going to take faith. All right, so how is this going to possibly work? The Jordan's flooded. They're supposed to just go walk into the river. How is this going to work? Joshua instructs the people, verse 13. As soon as the priests who carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth, set foot in the Jordan, its waters flowing downstream will be cut off and stand up in a heap. Oh, okay, perfect. So all we got to do, Joshua, is just step into the rushing river, and then God's going to cut off the water. Great. Sounds awesome. When they crossed the sea coming out of Egypt, all Moses had to do was raise up his staff, and the sea parted, right? Before they ever started walking through it. But God says, no, that was yesterday's news. I'm doing something new. We're going to do it this way this time. This is going to be different. As Erwin McMahon has put it, yesterday's faith isn't sufficient for today's challenges. That level of faith that you had that helps you to face the obstacles that you faced in the past is not going to be sufficient for the challenges that lie ahead if you're going to gain your future. You're going to have to dial it up a notch. Dial it up and keep moving forward. All right, so this was a risky endeavor, but verse 15 says that, yet as soon as the priests who carry the ark reached the Jordan and their feet touched the water's edge, the water from upstream stopped flowing. It piled up in a heap a great distance away at a town called Adam in the vicinity of Zarethan, where the water flowing down to the Sea of the Arabah, that is the Dead Sea, was completely cut off. So the people crossed over opposite Jericho. And from this, we learn the principle of the first step. The principle of the first step is that sometimes God waits to act until we move forward and take a step of faith. That's what happened here. And to move forward to what God has for you and me, we have to believe that the future is actually going to be better than the past. We have to follow his lead because he knows the way. And then next, we have to take the first step. We have to take that step. Do you ever just kind of look at other people's lives and think, other people's lives, they just seem to, have such much more exciting lives. They have such more meaningful life than you do. And you just kind of think to yourself, God just must love them more than he loves me. See, I don't believe that. I don't believe he loves them any more than he loves you. Maybe it's just that they were willing to take the first step forward in faith toward what God had for them while you've been waiting to have the path all mapped out for you before you're willing to move. See, to cross your Jordan into that promised life, you have to take the first step. And you have to trust that God is going to open up the way for you. That's what living by faith is. Oh, and by the way, this is so interesting to me. Did you know that in 1927, just about 100 years ago, an earthquake in Israel caused a landslide that completely cut off the Jordan River at about the same place that it happened in this account? Yeah. Maybe that's how God blocked up the Jordan this time, the first time. I don't know. But if he did use something like that, clearly, even so, the timing was miraculous here. And God had to block up that river almost 20 miles away from where they were crossing with precision timing so that the moment that the priest's feet stepped into the water, it stopped flowing. But that's how amazing God is. That's how our awesome God is. He can do things like that. And God will come through with just what you need to open up the way forward at just the right time that you need him to do it. So quit expecting him to just lay it all out for you ahead of time. I know that's what you want. That's what we always want. Because then we don't have to trust. Then we can walk by sight instead of by faith. But the only way to the promised life is going to be to walk by faith and not by sight. As Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 7. So, the next step, guess what the next step is? To take the next step. The next step is to take that first step forward towards whatever it is that God might be leading you towards, whatever God is inviting you into, whatever he's showing you, whatever he's leading you towards. Don't wait for him to show you the whole path. Don't wait for him to lay it all out. You got to just take the first step. So what is the first step for you? Well, I don't know. It depends. That's for you to figure out. That's for God to show you. Maybe the first step forward for you is to let go of what you've been holding on to, that you're settling for. Maybe it's to let go of life in the wilderness. So you know what? I don't have to live the rest of my life in a wilderness. I really can reach a better place if I just trust God. So I'm going to let go of this. I'm going to let go of this relationship. I'm going to let go of that job. I'm going to let go of my fears and what I've been settling for over here. Maybe you need to take the first step with Jesus because he's the one that's going to lead you forward. Hard to have his guidance until you put your trust in him. So maybe that's your first step, to put your trust in Jesus. To say, Lord, I'm going to give you my life because I trust that you can do more with it than I can ever do with it myself. That you will give me a life far beyond anything of my own making. So I'm going to give you my life. Would you pray with me? Lord Jesus, right here today, I think there's somebody here that wants to say to you, Jesus, I give you my life. Jesus, lead me into a future that is bright, into a future that is beautiful, to a life of meaning, to a life of purpose and fulfillment and direction, a life that is more than just living for myself, a life that is bigger than me, a life that's bigger than my family, a life that would give you glory, a life that would bring blessing to many others. Jesus, I just want to place my life in your hands. But I need your help. Today I'm going to choose courage to leave behind what is of the past, knowing that only then will I be able to gain the future. So I'm going to walk with you, Lord. Show me the way, show me the first step, and I will take it. I pray in your name.